Here we are, back again with episode 25, the quarter century. Almost coming in for centenary year. We're creeping ever towards it. Tony's back, and safe to say, straight in. We're going to get straight in there this week. Tony, end product. Let's hear it.
Viva la champion! Number one in the world, boys.
You done
Number
it.
one Underdog. Loving it, man. It was a great win.
Can't believe it. I've been on the platform, just checked there for a year and a half. I've probably been playing for about 11 months. Get the wildest strategy on the platform. I think that's... My gallery does more changing than Pavel's. But yeah, I won 2 nice cards. I won a Philip Tietz 1 of 10 super rare, who on first glance he's second division Germany. He's a goal scorer. He's got, in his last 15 games, he's got 6 goals, 3 assists, which is good.
Yeah.
But obviously whenever you've got Hoffmans and World Cup players in the pool, you get a bit greedy in your head. And then I got a star rare also. I got Christian Fruchtel, which on the face of it I think is a really good reward. Again, you've got Kimmich and stuff in the prize pool, but I can't grumble. I probably won about 20% of my gallery. Maybe won about 10-15% of my gallery, and rewards guaranteed. So I can't complain.
It's great.
I'm in it for the long haul.
As I was saying as well, the good thing about winning a U23 goalkeeper as well is if you don't want them and you do want to get some ETH back in balance, they're the easiest cards to get rid of quickly. I think your U23 goalkeeper at a good price. You sell it now, you'll be gone in days. You've got money in your bank there. So I think in terms of rewards, you can't complain with a U23 goalkeeper in that sense. It's just one of the most liquid cards on the platform. You can use it or you can sell it. And Fruchtel, as I was saying to you in the week, he's been on my watch list. I think he's like one of the hotly tipped sort of like up and coming goalkeepers coming out of Germany. I believe he's on loan at the moment, isn't he? Is it Austria, Vienna?
No, I think they bought him.
Have they bought him? Yeah,
I'm not too sure. Somebody told me yesterday they bought him, because I opened my rewards at pre-match meal, and he was on loan at Nuremberg, didn't play, and then now he's been bought by Austria Vienna. But maybe has like a buyback or a
possibly
Minerals or something.
Pretty nailed on goalkeeper as far as U23s are concerned, though.
Yeah, I think he's a... I just listed him at 1.3, sorry.
Yeah.
And then I'll consider what I'm going to do. I'll maybe take an ETH out just to start the ball rolling with my returns, and it means I've kept half the reward plus in.
Yep.
So I can show my wife that it's not just throwing money down the drain, which she sometimes thinks. But no, I'm happy to win it. First place I couldn't believe it, because Muleka wasn't playing, and then Olsen ended up grabbing a goal in end of the day, and I was thinking, I'm in here.
Yeah.
Got a chance. Adoy then done well, and then all I needed was a decisive to get a high tier 2, maybe. Decisive for a high tier 2, and I think it was like 2 or 3 shots in goal, and I was in the tier 1s. And then he just started popping off. Van Zier, I actually won it by about 25 points, 24.5 points maybe. And it was all down to a...
3 decisive from Van Zier.
Yeah, and a Philip Max error leading to goal, which was harsh, but I can't complain. The centre-back headed it off Philip Max's knees, came back, and the opposite striker scored. So, no, it was a good week's work.
Take your luck when it comes for you.
I take it all day long, right?
So I think...
go on, Tony. You go first, mate.
I think what everyone at home is wanting to know, Tony, is of this winning squad, Dennis Adoy, Christopher Olsen, Dante Van Zier, and Nicky Devlin super rares, how many of them are still in 32 Lotto FC? How many of them have been shipped out? Or
unfortunately, they're all still there. They didn't sell. I tried to put them up. I thought they were having a bit of form. To be fair, Van Zier will probably be able to sell closer to the weekend, but it's it's a hard gig to sell old super rares. But no, I just want to make profit and I want to keep spinning my gallery so I can keep being competitive. And I don't believe in holding on to players when, even if you've got a bit of sentiment to them, because I'm a smaller gallery, I can't compete with some big galleries. So if there's a 10-15% profit to be made, I need to take it.
Good shout. And you've been targeting that division. I remember thinking when you was talking about sort of like looking at that underdog super rare. You've been looking at that one for a while, haven't you? As like one you wanted to actually target. And I remember thinking at the time, it's a tough division to target that because as soon as they do pop off, like you've had a week and you've just won it, I bet none of those cards are even eligible again next week, are they? So you find yourself having to
Yeah,
slip out if you're going to try and target it again.
but if they do well, then you can sell them.
Yeah, that's
So if they
true.
do go over that, then you can sell them. But I think the one for me was, and it's probably, where can I see past weeks results?
If you sort of click the results and then go on or on Sorare data, go into the results tab and then just hit the sort of like the triangle back, it goes back a few weeks, a week at a time.
Right. So
It's the
for
SO5
me,
tab and then rewards. Yeah.
lads, my whole point of the thing was, and I'll tell you now, this will make sense. So, super rare underdog, I'm looking for, right? So, underdog super rare was won by me with 330 points, right? But see if I'd bought the players in rare and got the exact same points, I would have won I would have been 8th place in underdog rare. I know it's a lot cheaper, but it's still, it's
Mm.
still, it's still. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to look at the reward. It's still a tier 1, which is fine, really good. But that tier 1 isn't what I won. Do you know what I mean? That's not what I won. So I can't complain. That was why my whole strategy became. Sorry, I'm hardly able to speak here. My whole strategy became that way. I didn't want to go for rare. I wanted to go super rare because I thought it would be easier to get higher placing, which
I
I
think you're
should.
right. I was listening to the So Rare Andrews podcast the other week, and they were talking about the importance of super rares in like D3 versus like D2, and they were saying, if you pick up a super rare to play D3, who is like a 55 average, once they add their bonus, they're probably like a scoring a 60, which isn't enough to push you into the rewards in like Division 3 or like Pro as it's called. Whereas in D2, a player who averages about 55, 60, if you've got a whole team of that, you can get close to the rewards because, every player in those divisions is like the bonus in that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that if you look at the price of those cards, because they're not as useful for people who maybe play the pro leagues, like those top end sort of tier 1, tier 0 super rares, they're really expensive. So like jumping from playing just rare cards to buying supers, most people will go for those supers who might only cost like point 2 or point 3, but they're only really going to score you like 60 or 70 points on a good week, and that's not enough to like push you into the cards in the pro division. But in D2, a whole team of that can do the job, and I think like you said with underdog, the bonuses are cut out, right? So it's like it's just flat scores. So you can even look beyond, like buying super rares who are quite low in their scoring, but also you don't need the bonus. If you're looking to play them in underdog, you can buy the cheapest on the market, not worry about like what percentage bonus it's got.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting one to target. I've never really thought about it before, but as I was saying before off air, I've got so many sort of like poor super rares where I've won lots in D2 through like the close seasons, particularly. That I've often got a half decent entry for the underdog super rare, but I haven't quite smashed it in there just yet, like you did this week, just gone. But I think that's another thing as well. Is like as the big galleries continue. I mean, most of the big galleries win decent super rares. I guess that's the difference. Whereas I'm sort of one of those, I guess, upper mid tier galleries that can compete. But when I do win, I'm winning a tier 2, tier 3 super, and they're only really good for the underdog or the
Yeah.
specialist. Yeah, it's
I
It'd
just
be
checked.
interesting to see how like those sort of big galleries get on in the underdogs and super rare, like
I,
especially.
I, I just checked there, and he won a Santiago Rodriguez, which is decent,
That's what I was checking as well. Not bad for
about
eighth.
It's not bad,
point
yeah.
4, point 5, which obviously I don't know what his team. He's
New York City.
no, sorry, I don't know how much his
Oh,
team cost altogether, but I'm
sorry.
sure my return was probably a little bit better. No,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say so. Even as a percentage of like your expense spent out,
Yeah, because
especially with the stuff rare.
Vanzier would be your most expensive super rare in that squad. I
yeah,
would
he
guess.
he was probably plus. I actually ended up getting him for around. It worked out about point 0.7 because I got Lloyd
Nice.
Lapusin in a deal for about point 0.9, and then he gave me Van Zieren 0.25 for him, so about 0.65.
Lovely, man. That's a great trade. And see the thing about Underdog that really does, like, especially you, Tony, suit like galleries that are a bit more flexible, is what Stish is saying there. Like, there is no XP in it. So even though when you lose XP on buying on the
Yeah.
secondary market for Underdog, it doesn't mean anything anyway. You know, so if you've got 3 pieces and you're like, oh, I need one more, and you find a guy, and you're like, oh wow, and then you're not thinking, oh well, I'll be competing against, like, if it was like just Rare Pro or something, I'll be competing against all these other Vanziers that'll be 10% and 11%.
Yeah.
Doesn't come into it. It's just
Well,
on one.
this I just quickly, this guy's team probably cost about point 0.3.
Solid.
I'm being generous to him. About point 0.3 and 1.4. My team probably cost me about point 1 point something.
Mm.
So what I'm trying to say is my return, if I'd done that in the rare, would be nowhere near what I won there. I think Adoy was point 0.1, Nicholas Devlin was point 0.1, Olsen maybe point 0.4 or something in a trade, and Van Zier probably about point 0.7. So maybe 1.5, and I've won Fructo, who would clean that out, and then also Teats in a super rare, who's not been on sale yet. So no, I'm excited. I know we spoke about my rewards so far, but I'm excited about it. That was good.
I know, I'm buzzing, man. It's all about that end product, and as that was kind of rolling in for you, Tony, and obviously you've pulled your rewards. I was sitting there thinking, shit. Since we've been doing this podcast, Stish and Tony have been pulling out all the big wins. I need to get my fucking finger out.
It's your turn, mate. It's your turn next.
And you get the luck coming, man. So, like, see, kind of like what you were saying there, Tony, in terms of the super rares as well. Like, it might be you kind of imagined, and it's came to pass that like a 330 score is better than super rare than in rare, for example.
Yeah.
And mainly for my gallery, like I've still been churning out some wee wins here and there. I've not done anything big in a while, but I've had a lot of that focus on super rares again come back in, because obviously we had NBA drop the other day, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts in the kind of so rare sphere. And as I look at supers, I know some of them are a bit hard to sell, the tier 3s and the tier 2s or whatever, but I think for that Underdog, the specialist, and some of these D2s, it's the last part of like the high ground that you can get to, especially now with the price of some of the, like you're talking about Adoy and the Devlin for point ones. It's amazing for some of these supers that can rock out, what they can in the competition.
Adoy's floor's like 0.09 at rare. Like, to get him for point 0.1, I think it was 0.12. I'll tell you exactly. 0.1 on the dot, but there's some value in some super rares. Look, don't get me wrong, my gallery's flooded. Look, Adoy just sold for 0.102 rare.
His form's quality, man.
Got a good deal there then.
So there's some, look, don't get me wrong, I bought a couple of Jed Vaj and players like this I can't shift, who when it comes back around I'll probably get my money back or whatever, but there's definitely profit to be made if you can hold them. If they're not performing, you just put them back in Underdog, and if they're performing, they go up. And it was the same with Van Zier. Van Zier was injured and he was out of form, and he actually, I think I told you, he fitted in the specialist under 40 for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I got him in mine. I've got his limited, and I've got him in mine. I had him in mine last weekend actually.
Yeah,
so
and then
but the rest of my team was pants. So
then I think he's maybe outgrew that, and now he'll probably have outgrew. He's got one more week left at Underdog, I think. So
yeah, he's captain in my Underdog Limited this game week that's on now.
yeah,
So I'm hoping for another big.
To be fair, he's got a 66 score that will get wiped out. So he'll maybe have another 2, maybe 3 weeks in Underdog, as long as he doesn't hit an R92. But if he does, then you've got a chance of reward. So that's the way I see it. If they perform, good. If not, then you've got them. Eventually, they will perform in your thing.
I see that.
I was just looking at it there. Like, I don't think Adoy is a decent example, I suppose, but there's probably a little bit better ones. But for example, there is only 2 super rare Adoys, so like some of these other cards, maybe there's more of them, right? And then like having the super rare, it's like the problem we're finding in D4s and D3s is that there's 200 Carlos Heels and there's 300 Kimmiches and there's 200 Mbappes and whatever. And in limited, it's even more prevalent. But when you get up to super rare, like those levels for Underdog, and what I'm trying to do mainly is like D2s and whatever, there's 5 of them, there's 10 of them, there's maybe 12, and that's a problem, but then that 12 is spread across like 6 divisions rather than 200 being spread across 4 divisions of like an Mbappe or something.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I thought as well. I thought, for instance, say you've got a Mbappe super rare and he pops off, not many people are going to have that in super rare, but if they have it in rare, they're maybe going to have it. And it's the same with the cards I use. People will have Nicky Devlins, people will think, oh, he's got a good game week, we'll throw him in. Or sometimes it kills me because I've got better players that I don't put in, but it means I really need to pick and choose rather than just go right here. My rare teams, I just bat them out, and I just mix them up, and it struggled at the weekend. Again, last weekend, I'll tell you some scores I hit. James Forrest hit 100, which is I wasn't going to use anyway. But Daniel Wasrael got a 98. William Carvalho, who I never put in, got an 83.
Yeah.
Griezmann got a 71. Tagliafico got a 66. Mekele got a 65. Koulibaly got a 64. Yusuf, like all these boys, but I never won an all reward because I've just not been picking it right. But I've been putting a lot of research and energy into Underdog, and it probably shows. If you research, you put energy into it, and you believe in it, you've got a chance of winning something. And I didn't think I would get first spot. That's madness for me, but here I am. I got a bit of luck.
I'm just having a look now at like the league table as well, and the last winning place on the Underdog Super Rare only scored 250 points, and that's across 4 cards. So when you think about it, if you're looking at like trying to compete to just win something, I think they win a tier 3 rare. So it wasn't an amazing reward, but it's a reward, right? And to score 250 points, what's that across 4 players? What's that, like 65 points or something like that? Less than 65 average. And then obviously one of them's got a captain as well, right? You captain one in Underdog, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to quickly check that, but
50% bonus.
So you don't need great super rares either. You just need 4 outfield players who are going to start and hopefully have like an above average game, and then hopefully pick the best captain, and then you might win. At worst case, a tier 3 or tier 2 rare. It's something, isn't it? It's like I've started looking at the Legends Challenge. I haven't had any wins in there just yet, but I've bought 3 Legend cards.
By the way, people say that
like an ETH grinder, because if you win anything, at worst case, the cheapest Legend's about 16 quid on the market. That's 16 quid.
Yeah,
and,
people say to me like that's the best one to go into because there's so many rewards compared to what there's
entries,
people playing
right?
it.
Yeah, speaking of that, actually, this weekend they've got a special, haven't they? There's like a shirt special, which should take some of the Legend cards out as well, because you can enter Legends in that. Are either of you looking at that as a potential entry this weekend? It's only 25 shirts, isn't there? It's a bit
lean.
Bit too lean for me as well. It's not tempted me in that one, even though I've got those Legend cards that I can use. But I did a little bit of nerding around the Legend cards results this weekend just to see, because like I said, I've been in there a few weeks now and I've not had any joy just yet. So I thought, let me have a little look and see like if there's a strategy I'm missing. And I had a little look at some of the top scorers in the division, and the strategy I'm missing is, obviously, I think the best Legend card is, well, there's 2 of them now that do the same score. It's there's the Van Basten Ajax card, which scores as a forward, and the Johan Cruyff Ajax card, which also scores as a forward. Ajax clean up most weekends, right? On a bad weekend, one of their forwards is going to score 80, probably, on a bad weekend. If you put both of them in your team, you're doubling your score. Obviously, you can only use you can only use 2 players from any given team. So let's say you've got Cruyff and that Van Basten card, you're basically scoring double whatever the top goal scorer at Ajax scores, which usually is 70 to 80 on a normal weekend. You know, if Tadic has a blind eye, it's 100 twice. So the top scorer in that division this weekend had Cruyff and Van Basten Ajax cards, and then beefed out the rest of the team with I think it might have been like the Laudrup Bayern card, which is Kimmich basically. But I think in this case it was Sabitzer. But yeah, I just think like if you've got those 2 Ajax forwards on the right weekend, plus maybe the Real Madrid centre backs are always pretty decent. And then if you can pick a goalkeeper who keeps a clean sheet that weekend, and then another good all round scorer defender card, maybe I usually put Rodrigal from Zenit in my team, and then the best goalkeeper limited I can find. And then mine are like Zidane, Juventus, which was more of a collectible for me. His Juventus's midfield is not like putting up those enormous all round scores like Kimmich does. So that's why I've got the Laudrup Munich card for the Kimmich scores, and I've got the Van Basten Ajax. But I'm really tempted to go in and get that Cruyff Ajax as well, just to pair them up top. So I've got the double up on any week that Ajax have a big game, and in the hope that I win a legend. Because if I win a legend, the worst case you win I think it's like a David Villa or it's normally like David Villa or like Panenka or something like that. And I think even those are like 15 quid on the market. 15 quid, it's another little leaf grinder, isn't it? That's the way I look at it. Yeah, but I haven't had any end product in there just yet.
I've been kind of weighing up legends on and off for maybe the last 4 months. And I don't know, I don't know. It's a hard one to... all the players I like the look of are players I liked, and then kind of what you're saying, there's a Dan at Juve. Like the guys I would want to buy is Nedved. So I'd want a Nedved. That's a Juve card, probably quite crap.
Yeah,
and Veron, again, Lazio midfield, probably not that great.
Milinkovic-Savic on a good weekend can put a decent score, but he's not like an all-rounder. He needs a decisive to put him into those 70 plus, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, Veron's L5, if we're going to call it his L5, is 74 and his L15 74. I don't know for a legend if that's good or bad, but
that's look right. Awful. I think he's better than Zidane.
Is he?
I think so.
So I look at that and I think, am I just being a sentimental fool wanting Veron and Nedved rather than go? Because I would never buy Brian Laudrup. I just couldn't do it, It's just not going to happen. And then guys like Cruyff and Van Basten, I know they're like Ajax and whatever, but I just couldn't, I don't know.
Doesn't do it for you.
Yeah, I never watched them. I don't really have anything going for them in that sense. It's just a kind of Ajax token I'd be buying. And I've never really played Sorare that way, to that nth degree of it, just by numbers almost, so it doesn't really excite me to do that. But then I think, what's the point of buying a Veron and a Nedved and then maybe a Nesta or something and never winning,
I think in terms of the ROI as well, if you did want to pick up, say, I think I got lucky with the Van Basten that I bought, the Ajax one, because I think it was whoever bought it priced it as the Van Basten floor. So he put it the same price as the AC Milan Van Basten. So I picked that up for 50 quid. And I think that card's probably double that in terms of his scoring output. When you compare it to Cruyff, which is about 100 and something quid, usually 100 to 120 quid, depending on the time of week. Buying legends as well, you can be really careful and cute about when you buy them, because if there isn't a legends tournament that game week, most of the midweeks don't have any legends tournaments. So if you buy a legend on a Tuesday afternoon, they're normally a lot cheaper than they are come Friday morning or something like that. So I've been keeping an eye on it. I just think in terms of ROI, let's say that you pick up the Cruyff, the Laudrup and Van Basten Ajax, you might be looking at an outlay of about 250 quid, let's say, around about that. And if you win, if worst case, you win a 15 quid card and you can sell it, and you should always be able to sell the cheapest legend on the platform, because anyone who wants a little cheap entry and is going to buy the Veron or the Panenka just to have an entry that weekend, right? So you only have to win it. You only have to scrape your way in 10 times to get your money back. But I'm with you as well, Quinny. There is a part of me that's like, I don't really want a Panenka. I know I'm not that bothered about it. And then there's other cards as well, like even like Cannavaro and that. Like, he's a great player, but I don't look at that card and be like, I want that in my collection. Whereas the Zidane one was like,
Yeah.
I was obsessed with, and still am obsessed with Zinedine Zidane. So having that in my collection, and I know I overpaid for it, but doesn't bother me because I got the number 21, which was his number at Juventus.
Nice.
It's like, I don't think anyone else clocks that because it's got number 10 on his card because it's a France card, but he scores as a Juventus player, and that was his squad number when he played for Juve. And that was just,
Love
that
that.
was always like my number playing football because of him at Juve. But yeah, it's an interesting one because I never saw myself getting into Legends, but now in terms of limited, I'm looking at my Underdog entry, my Specialist entry, and that Legends entry as like my main ones, and then I just see what I can fill with like whatever's left after that. I've ended up with quite a lot of limited cards, but I don't really play. I don't play limited to win like I do in rare. I've just got a lot of them now, and I think it was mostly due to I want to play. I love the idea of playing Underdog and Specialist because it's like a more pure way of playing the game. And I think you mentioned there as well, like basketball. Obviously, we should probably touch on that a little bit as well. But the scoring mechanic for basketball is a little bit like the Specialist, isn't it? They put the old school scoring caps in.
Yeah. It's back.
What do you reckon for that guy? Quinny, you played Sorare when that was a thing on football side, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think we could see that reintroduced to Specialists? Because it is maybe a little bit of a clearer way of explaining having players that aren't just banging 60 plus every week in your team.
I could definitely see them moving that way with, like, you know, for the basketball, it's what their L10 average, basically. So if they did something like that, yeah, I could definitely get behind it. The way it used to work, for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, the old XP system, like, you know, we've got 8.5% and 5%. It didn't used to be that. It used to be your card started at, you know, and also back then, I'll keep the history lesson very brief, right? But back then, the scoring matrix wasn't 0 to 100, it was 0 to infinity, and every action had a point. So a good player could score, you know, 90, 100 points or whatever. And then the multiplier started at 7.2, and then it would go up to a maximum of like 15 or something for a rare. And then for super rares, it would start at, I can't remember, but it's the same kind of thing. You know, it started at multiple. So if your guy banged out 80 and then you're timesing that by 7, you can probably imagine the scores were all in the thousands. It was all really big numbers and whatever. And those multipliers helped it, or the purpose of it was to make sure that if you did have the same team, because there was much fewer cards back then the multipliers would be a huge separator. And then what happened is you'd have 5 cards, and then the power cap was, I don't know, let's say it was 40. So if you've got a rare that's at 10, X10, and then you've got a bunch of other guys that were like 9.6 and 9.6, you'd be over the power cap, and then you'd be in Discord looking for, oh, can I get a Hans Vanaken off somebody that's at 8.6, please? You know, and then, you know, you're trying to swap a more powerful one for a slightly worse one so that you can squeeze it in. And also in D4, because of that power cap, I played my super rare Trippier for its first 5 levels because it was like a really low power super rare and you could just about squeeze it in. Which was quite fun. So I really like the fact that they've brought it back to the table. They've reimagined it and done it very well for basketball. And, you know, they will have to do something like that in football at some point across the board, because the reason they've had to start it with basketball day one is because basketball, and I know nothing about basketball, but I can tell you this, it's a very power player driven sport. You know, like every team has a main guy and everything goes through. And you could just go around the whole league and buy everybody's main guy and then just throw them in a team. And yeah, that's not going to be fun.
Everyone would do that as well. You'd have like hundreds of people with exactly the same team every weekend, wouldn't you? Like,
that wouldn't be fun at all, you know. So I don't think we're quite there with football, but like we said earlier, with limiteds and rares, it's maybe not too far off. You know, in supers and uniques, it's nowhere near because there's just so few of them by comparison. But yeah, I can't remember what your actual question was at the beginning there.
No, you kind of covered it on the idea of like bringing those sort of like power caps over to football, like we saw with basketball. Another thing worth touching on the basketball was, anyone see the price of the first few auctions go?
I seen the first LeBron go for like 3 ETH.
It went over 4, a limited, and the limited's an edition of 5,000. So if you imagine there's going to be 5,000 of those, and it went for 4 ETH. They have sold a couple since that have been. There is extremely wild
What the
fluctuation.
hell? Steph Curry's first rare went for 2.1.
That's what I'm saying. That there may be bargains to be had if this does become like a big thing.
Jesus.
If you look at LeBron's price chart as well, the first one went for 4, so think of that collectability. Then there's been 3 or 4 since I last checked anyway, and I'm pretty sure like the next one went for like 1.2, and then one went for like 0.75. It's like there is such a massive difference. It's almost like the luck of the time you log in.
Yeah,
And,
he's 5 out of 5,000 went for 0.63.
yeah, it's in, and you're getting the same utility because they haven't unlocked like the limited game just yet. They're letting people figure it out, which I think is good as well because I think they'll get a lot of new players coming onto the platform. I feel more. There's definitely more of a buzz around this than there was the MLB, and I think like if anyone watched the launch, the production on it, like hats off to Sorare. It was like watching television, mate. It was like
It's
it was
proper,
like
wasn't
it was proper. Yeah, they had like like all the basketball players on there talking about their favorite players, the players to watch. They did a really good walkthrough on how to play the game, which I feel like has been missing a little bit on the football side. They almost need to revisit that and like do a video like that for their YouTube channel that walks people through in that like step by step, explaining why you can't just pick 6 players that are banging 50 yard plus. I thought it was really good. It impressed me a lot, and I think hopefully some of those sort of traits that we see applied to basketball can come into football. But I think the prices of the first few cards was absolutely insane. I had a little look, and a lot of the people bidding were like some of the sort of names you recognise in the big bids on the football side as well. So I do think that like the majority of the people kind of going in and spending the money right now are people coming over from football, but I feel like basketball has a bit more of a global appeal than baseball. So it'd be interesting to see if that brings in new users or it loses. I'd just be interested to see if it like dilutes the user base from football a little bit. But do either of you have any intention, Quinny? I've seen you've been buying some basketball cards as well.
I
You've
just
been
put a wee bid on one.
you're getting involved. I feel like I might do. I like the idea of the game. I like watching basketball. I don't mind watching basketball. I haven't watched it properly for a long time, but I feel like a little involvement in this game. And I think like I'd be quite happy just playing the commons for a little while, to be honest, and seeing how I get on. But very tempted by it, which I wasn't at all with baseball.
Same.
And I wouldn't call myself any. I'm definitely not an expert on basketball, but like you were saying, every team's got like the star player, and I think most casual sports fans know who who those players are in most of the big teams. I think
Yeah.
so. I think it'll appeal a little bit more to like the armchair football fan who fancies something else on the side. Bit of basketball. Tony, who have you bid on? Who are you looking at?
Kevin Durant, I just put a 0.125 on his limited because I'd like a wee bit of collectability on that, to be honest. I might not get it, but it's just first bid in it.
You do actually have a physical card collection as well, don't you? Like so,
Yeah, I've
does
got quite a few KDs actually. I've got quite a few cards. I don't know where they are. I've had a few graded and stuff. They're somewhere, but
is it something you've been into for a long time? And was that like part of the reason you kind
that
of?
got me into Sorare. Aye.
That's
No,
what.
I just
Yeah.
people around me were doing it, and I kind of enjoyed the idea. And I was doing the breaks. I was getting involved, and it was good. I enjoyed it.
Was that something you was doing for YouTube, or was that more for you as a
Yeah, a bit of both.
bit of both? Yeah, I see quite a bit of that on YouTube, like the box openings and all that. But I've noticed as well because my son started collecting the football cards and that now, and they seem to have upped their game quite a bit. You can get the cards now that have bits of like the actual jerseys the players wore and real like autographs on them, a bit like
Yeah, they're
we've seen
cool.
with the American sports card. So that was pretty cool. I didn't even realize that was a thing in football until recently. But has that been something that's been happening for a long time now, or is that relatively new still in football?
I think that's been happening quite a while.
I had absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea. Another thing, actually, one more point to touch on a basketball is they have 2 different versions of the cards as well, don't they? Have like action shots that they're going to introduce later in the season. Have you seen that?
No.
I think I'd
So
love to see that in football. We kind of
yeah,
see it a little bit with the limiteds, the legend cards. They've got like action shots. But I don't see any reason why we couldn't have that with
That'd
regular
be
player
pretty
cards.
cool, eh?
I
Be
think
nice
the
with
I think it's organisation, isn't it? Because like with the NBA, you can say to them, right, and halfway through the year, you're going to send us action shots of every player, and they'll go, right, cool. But if you're to do that in football, you're going to Belgium, you're going to Austria, you're going to Germany, you're going to Spain, you're going to Italy, you're going to all these places, and some of them might just say aye and then never do it, and then people will be like, "Where's my action shots for Belgium?" You know, and
Yeah,
you know, and
you're right.
it's not quite
You're
there.
right.
But one thing I was thinking about with the basketball, because I wasn't planning on actually buying cards day one, especially, you know, but I'd sold that Harwood Bellis last week, and I've sold a few football cards over the last like couple of weeks, and I was ready to like kind of maybe like we were kind of chatting about, maybe get a card or two in that will kind of help where I'm at now, maybe push me over the line and get back into tier ones and tier zeros in the like immediate term. But when I was looking at these basketball prices, man, see those fluctuations?
Yeah.
I was thinking if I can get a couple of them on fluctuation, like, yeah, and again, anyone who listen to this will know, but NBA Top Shot like was mental huge, you know, and so rare. Like I know it's a wee bit viral this morning because the 24-hour NFT charts, it's doubled CryptoPunks, which I don't think it's really done before because people are talking about it like it's a big deal.
Mm.
But I think that so for me, I went and picked up 12 cards. I wasn't even planning on picking up any, but for me, I'm thinking like it is a day one opportunity to be had. You know, if there's something that, and I got informed off my brother who knows this stuff like
Oh
more.
yeah, you mentioned him before. Yeah.
Yeah, so I got a couple of rookies and I got a couple of guys that, you know, he was going through his fantasy team with me, and every time he said that this guy's a sleeper, I just started putting bids on them, you know,
Yeah.
because I'm not trying to get Durant's and LeBron's and whatever because I'm not spending that much money on basketball. But I got 4 rares that cost an ETH combined, and I think 3 of them are one-ofs, and one of them is a 3-of, and it's a rookie. And then I got like 8 limiteds, and they make up a team, you know, like they're decent enough and whatever. And
You
those
might have,
limiteds were maybe about half an ETH-ish, you know, so about an ETH and a half I've spent, give or
Yeah,
take.
we need to look at your teams and hope we can steal a bit of your knowledge.
That's no problem. It'll be out there soon. Don't worry.
I've got a good one for you. So we like you get in the football, you're gonna have the hoops bringing it home for you, and in the basketball, you're gonna be opening some end product from the hoops.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, I've got 2 Boston Celtics players. It was the first ones I wanted.
Oh,
So
nice.
I'll go get some Celtics, and I think I don't know who the best player is, right? But this guy Marcus Smart. Last thing I'll say about
But
basketball.
we by the way, Quinny, I'm just empty
Is he?
toilets and just go. You just kept on.
Apparently, he was like Defender of the Year last year or something, and he's got green hair. You know, so
All right.
I was trying to get one of his rares, but they were all going for like 0.3, 0.4, and I was like, wow. And they weren't really fucked. I was hoping to get one under 0.2, like, but they weren't really going there. It's ended up getting unlimited anyway. So, like, yeah, I think I've got some wee pieces, and I'm going to try and, for the most part, like, I'll be doing content with my brother and stuff like that. So that'll be good fun.
Yeah.
But my actual involvement in it, like, if I get a LeBron or something like that, it'll be a win. I won't be going out and buying these guys, but hopefully, like some of these year one-offs or year one rookies and stuff like that. You know, I've spent an ETH and a half. If you told me right now in 6 months I'll sell 2 cards and it'll wash its face, I wouldn't be surprised. You know, so that's kind of I wasn't going to do it, but like you say, the fluctuations were a bit mad, and I thought, you know, I know the price of a limited, and I know the limiteds are 5,000 in this rather than 1,000. But you've got to remember as well that this is like all of America and all of the basketball world will want to tap into this at some point. And there's not like there's divisions upon divisions of different leagues and conferences. It's only one, you know. So, and then again, I know from people saying before in Top Shot that early mints, like low numbers, carry value to this crowd, you know. So even a 5-of or something, or you know, I don't mind getting one of them in and just chuck it in the back, and go for it.
Yeah.
But in terms of end product, one thing that's the only reason I kind of wanted to bring that kind of side things up, because I think if you can get a good clutch of like a smart little roster before any huge mass adoption comes into basketball, you could easily get a couple of sneaky wins on the bounce quite quickly, and then before you know it, you've got an early adopter gallery that everyone gives me shit for on the football side, you know. Kind of thing.
True. It is tempting. Definitely tempting. I might have a little look this afternoon and see, but I like the idea of having a little limited team to roll out with a couple, maybe one or 2 half decent cards, and the rest sort of like up and comers and sleepers, as you call them. I'll have to be keeping an eye out for you and your brother on YouTube then. Find out what you got to buy in and just copy.
That's kind
Yeah,
of
I'm
bad.
the same.
So I got a guy, like I say, last thing I'll say about it, but I got two rookies. I got a guy called Mathurin. I got his limited and I got a rare of him. And apparently, when I was buying a few of them, I was sending it to the Americans that play Sorare, and I was like, what about this guy? What about this guy? And every time they seen Mathurin and another guy I went and got a one of, Trey Jones, they were like, oh, that's a good pick. You've done well. He'll be good this year and all that. And you get that kind of validation off of more than one source, because I'm relying on people telling me stuff, you know. I was up at 1 o'clock in the morning and I was like, there's a trade Joe. I said to somebody, oh, I got the limited, and they're like, oh, he was going to be really good, by the way. And then the one of was coming up in 20 minutes. I was like, fucking man.
Why not?
0.25 is the limit. And I got it for zero. Anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I don't think it really detracts from the football from me, because I'm in a kind of solid position at the moment, and I'm maybe just missing a bit of luck. Some guys needing to come back from fitness, like McGregor and Mulgrew and maybe one or two others. And I think I'm quite set for the divisions I'm playing. Like you were saying earlier, Stish, like the most part, limiteds, I've not really been taking them overly seriously. But I do feel my limited teams now, over the last month, are like seriously competitive. It's like one card letting me down across like a lot of teams. And you know, it's like Tony's had that luck for months. You know, it's one card that fucks you, and then one day you wake up and you're first, you know. You just need to wait for it to click in sometimes. So I'm quite content in the limiteds in that sense, I guess.
Yeah, I think I've lost a few goalkeepers because a few of my sort of goalkeeper options in limited were in the Americas, and they've stopped playing now, or like they're not in the playoffs. And Matthew Ryan, who is the goalkeeper for Copenhagen's, lost his place. So I literally have like two limited goalkeepers now, and I don't really want to buy another one. So you know, unless I can do some trades to get another one, which is probably a good idea, wouldn't hurt me to do, because I've got a lot of limiteds that I just don't use, that aren't of use to me. So if I could put a lump of those together to go and have a chat with Pavel about a goalkeeper, that might not be a bad idea. It might open limited up a bit more for me. But yeah, I'm kind of stuck with Philip Cohn and Andrew Snopper as my sort of goalkeeper options, and they tend to get used in Legend and Specialist. So it just leaves me with like a very punty like all-star lineup after that, pretty much. But yeah, maybe I could probably like do with like swapping out some of like my more like premium limiteds for a goalkeeper or two. Like I've got like Fekir, who I probably don't need a Fekir like for the leagues that I'm entering, you know.
Yeah.
Unless you're looking to like hit that all-star or the champ, Fekir is probably like more than I need. So maybe I need to do some trading. I need to get into that Tony mode of like flipping them in and out, limited, get some use out of them.
I've actually had a break for trading for a while, and it's actually felt quite good, but it is good to get in the mix.
Yeah. I find the thing with trading is it's just so time consuming as well. Like you're on Discord, your phone's going off, you're trying to look at stuff, like you're trying to get on with your work in the day to day as well, away from Sorare. And it's like looking at Discord, having a conversation with someone who's arguing with you over about a quid. It's just like, it's not my favourite part of Sorare. I love the scouting element, but I don't like the actual trading. So I tend to end up just paying whatever the sort of floor price is. I did pick up a limited for this weekend. I know we were talking about like the Underdog 45 on the podcast last week, and I've become obsessed with looking for players who are like a quid or two just to see. And I picked up a card this week. I'm going to tell you who it was. I picked up, where are we? My club cards. I paid £3.50 for him. Mark van der Marel plays for Emmen, a centre back. He's got an L15 of 43, so he goes into the U45 category. Nice. He scored a 6 against PSV last week. They got tanked like 6-1 or whatever. But every score before that, AZ, he scored a 60, Excelsior 100, NEC 70, Vitesse 62. So his L5 is 60, but he's a 45. He qualifies for the U45. And I thought £3.50, I'm having him. I'm going to try and put a really cheap little team together for the U45 because I think it's a fun thing to do. And we obviously mentioned it on a podcast last week, and I'm just going through like my tweets, and I noticed quite quite a few people got in touch and sort of shared their U45s, and we got quite a few listeners that had a little bit of a good week. So like I see Jamie Sorare who tweeted us. He had Vitek as his captain, who put up 100 in the Underdog 45. He managed to put up a score of 323.
Wow.
Which at the time he tweeted us, he was 24th. And he had a tier 1 locked in. So hopefully, if you're listening, Jamie, you held on to that tier 1. But he had your man Ryan Edwards in his team there, put up a 58. And Stefan Nuts, who's 73.4. And and someone else tweeted as well. K Sorare, nice name. In 22nd place and 323, had a team that they reckon cost them £15.50. So
lovely.
hopefully that tier 1 win was nice, and be interesting to see. Might have to go into the rewards and have a little look and see what you guys won. But good to see that people out there are getting a bit of end product in, getting involved with the spirit of the podcast, especially when it's only 15 quid to do so. So yeah, it's inspired me to go out and see what's in the market, see if I can pick 2 or 3 cards up, and try and put out an underdog team and make a note of like what it costs and see what the sort of ROI is. Because in my head, it should be like obtainable to get in those cards, especially in the U45. Like we were saying, you can pick up those pretty cheap. And if you get lucky and you pick those 4 cards correctly, and the captain has a good game, you could be right in amongst it. And I think there's star limited cards in that as well, isn't there? In the Underdog, if you win a star,
maybe the podium.
Yeah, if you get anywhere near it, you'll be absolutely laughing, and it's doable. It is.
I reckon they'll give you a better. That's the only thing. Seeing Underdog limited, I reckon they would give you a Kimmich or a Haaland or a. Whereas in Super Rare, they're not going to give you because there's such little supply, which I understand. I totally understand, but the rare in the Super Rare Kimmich isn't coming out for an Underdog win with 330 points, I don't think.
Because I think the first week they did it, didn't someone win an Mbappe? The first week Underdog Rare winner won an Mbappe, didn't they?
Sounds familiar.
If I'm not mistaken.
That does sound familiar. Was there not a screenshot? It was the second one Mbappe and first one on rubbish, but it was a fake screenshot. It was actually the first one Mbappe.
Was it?
But yeah, it's a good little tournament, the Underdog. I know we talk about it a lot on here, but shout out anyone who's listening. Keep sending in your underdogs, especially if you find yourself finishing in the cards. We'd love to know what the sort of value of your team is, because it's nice to see people winning, like potentially doubling their gallery value with 1 win from like an Underdog 45. It's definitely doable if you're a new player. Obviously, we probably don't have many new players listening, because you don't kind of start off listening to the podcast and then get involved. It's normally the other way around. But in terms of like speaking to new players at the minute, I'm just trying to push a lot of people towards that Underdog, and the 45 on the weekends is just like, you can get involved for like 10, 20 quid. But it's nice to know that people are actually having some success with those kind of entries as well. Another thing we mentioned on the podcast last week was people getting caught at work doing.
That's what I was just looking for.
I've got one, and it came from Connor Kebab.
Hey, friend of the channel.
Connor Kebab. Luckily, my manager doesn't do weekends, but yesterday I was trying to explain why I was watching FC Seoul on the computer to my colleagues. I mean, I've been there myself. I've definitely I work with a friend of mine who's from Seoul, and he can't believe how much time I spend watching FC Seoul. So I can definitely sympathise with that. There was another one as well. I'm trying to find it, but I know someone else mentioned having Bet365 open in their office and getting caught on Bet365 and having to go to the toilet, pretending they weren't well, to watch a game on Bet365, which we've definitely all been there. The thing that annoys me about that is that you can't full screen it. Why is it on Bet365 you can only full screen certain games? Has anyone else noticed that?
I've
It's
not been on
weird,
it in
isn't
years. I had to ban myself for it like 10 years ago.
it? Yeah.
I was betting on Thailand second division and stuff like that. It got
Oh,
mental.
mate, do you know, I actually had a little bet on it last night on the Tigra game because
Oh,
I,
cool.
I, I saw that Armoa was like 9-1 to score first, and I thought that's obscene because he scores first quite a lot and he's on form at the minute. He scored or assisted in the last 6 games, I think, for Tigra. And I was looking at that Retegui as well because I've got Coladio. I've watched them a fair few times and I know they're in decent form at the minute. And I thought their odds were like completely off. So I went to bed. I put like a £3 build a bet on Armoa to score first, Tigra to win 2-1. They won 2-1, but Retegui scored first, so I lost the bet, but I was very close. I think I had like 34-1 on that as well. I was like, would have been a decent little win off a £3 bet, but I very rarely bet since I've been playing so rare, to be honest. It kind of gives me the same enjoyment out of like having some involvement in the game, but not needing to throw new money into it. But
Yeah, that's kind of the way it's been for me as well. Just
it's
moved away
good.
from it.
It's
Yeah, because
definitely
you actually have some. You actually, again, it's just actually buying things with your money rather than like, you know, it's the same as going into a casino, a bookie. You know, you're just watching the ball spin around and does it land on green, red, or black kind of thing.
you've just lost your money. Yeah.
Does somebody score a goal before the 60th minute? Does that team, you know, it's just too final, too concrete. It's like, anyway, I'm long
No,
past it myself. But again, everyone I'm talking to as well, when I'm like, oh, where did you watch the game last night? They're like, oh, Bet365. I'm thinking, shit, maybe I should go and lift that self exclusion and just put a fiver in it and have a bit easier access to some of these games I'm trying to watch.
yeah, because it's hard to find a stream outside of a lot of those betting things, which is a shame. But unless you've got uh, like a dodgy TV box or something, it's hard to like. And even some of them, it's hard to find the game because you need to know what channel might be showing it as well, and
Sure.
what country might have it on. But yeah, Bet365, Betfair has a few games on as well. But I find like if I'm trying to watch a game, I can normally get it up on Bet365. There's very few games that are covered by Sorare that aren't on there actually. And obviously we were speaking on the Sorare Odyssey last week, and I put forward to the boys to watch the Mechelen game, and I said I thought we would have goals, and it was a scrappy one. It was 1-1. It finished. They conceded in the last minute, Herenveen, but Tom High, who I did tip, he managed to get on the score sheet finally, put up a very big score. So
Nice.
fingers crossed. That's the beginning of him having the season I was hoping him to have, and he starts to get closer to that 1.2 ETH or whatever ridiculous price I paid for him in the preseason. But what have you guys got going on for this game week ahead? What are you looking forward to?
Uh, I've not even looked yet, to be honest, but again, it'll just be underdog, it'll be rare. I think the NBA one's really interesting me. That's what I'm doing just now.
I was going to say, yeah, you've got that look in your face that I've had last night. You're just like, oh, what's going on here? And having a
Yeah.
wee lift under
And I
the.
think the early adopting could be real interesting.
Interesting to see like how to scout a game like that as well, because I know like statistically the NBA is a big thing on like statistics, rebounds, like the stats are everywhere. You can see them, but how? Obviously, not watch. I'm not a basketball expert. I just wonder where do you get your information from? And I think that that's
Yeah.
probably like an interesting point on the football side as well. Outside of obviously using Sorare data, are there any websites that you two find yourself going back to for more and more, trying to do deep dives on stats that maybe aren't as obvious to us all on Sorare data? I think Sorare data does most of the hard work now, but do you go anywhere else to sort of like do a bit of extra scouting?
I like the on SofaScore. I can't remember how you access it, but if you go into SofaScore, there's they can give you like the league tables of statistics, if you know what I mean, like the top 20 in the division for pass accuracy or that kind of stuff. And like I've said before, I like that for trying to find like when like a new division comes on, if somebody
Yeah,
pops up in the top 20 all the time, but they're not in top 10s, there's a good chance they'll be slept on and maybe they just need, like Mikey Trezor was like that when Eredivisie came on. I think I told that story recently. So that's the only kind of thing I'll maybe scratch around for in terms of extra stats, is just some of the stuff that, today's form hasn't shown, but tomorrow's form might. Kind of idea.
yeah. I found myself using that FB Ref. You've been on that website
Oh,
before.
that's
It's very
very good.
nice.
Yeah, it's very good.
Looks
I
really
always
good.
forget about it.
It's really good. So I went in there in the week just trying to sort of like, obviously we come to the end of MLS and K League and J League, and I've gone into sort of like those and I tried to like spot players who maybe like youngsters who, towards the end of the season, they'll give a few youngsters their first sort of run outs and stuff like that. And hopefully they progress over the close season and they might get in the first team next year. So just look, I was trying to identify players who like maybe didn't get loads of minutes this season, but per 90, their average score would be this or this. And it's just like, you find a couple of players who've bagged a couple of assists off of like a couple of 10 minute appearances or something like that, and just hope that they kick on, find their way into the first team a bit more next season. And I think that's one of the few things you can do now, isn't it? Because there's so much information on like past performance on Sorare Data, even on a new league. Like if they added the Greek division tomorrow, Sorare Data would probably have like the L40s up with it before the cards have even arrived on the market. Like
Yeah.
all they need to do is get that information from Opta and add it to their thing. So it's just like trying to find the gems now before they hit the platform is becoming more and more difficult. And I just wonder if there is anyone listening out there, we'd love to hear your tips and tricks on your like sort of the secret recipes of finding and identifying the next. I don't know who's I guess the next like Florian Wirtz. We need to spot him before Sorare Data flags him up to everyone, and we're all in a mad frenzy trying to get a 4th bid in their first mint in a couple of seasons time, which will happen the way things are going. Yeah, I'm in a similar boat when it comes to this weekend. Going back to that original point there, I haven't really like fully looked at my teams just yet, but I think I'm definitely looking forward to putting together that Underdog 45 team, and I'll share it on socials once I've figured out what they are and try and see if we can get some end product for under 15-20 quid would be like really nice. What about you, Quinny? Have you got anything in particular looking forward to the weekend?
Nothing in a standout way, if you know what I mean. It's kind of rinse and repeat from last weekend in terms of the teams and the competitions I can kind of go after. But like I was kind of touching on earlier with the whole like selling some cards recently in basketball or whatever. I did feel like I was kind of at a wee bit of a crossroads with some of like this. Like, I've kind of wrote off under 23 and I've sold some big pieces out of that. And I'm quite well consolidated down now. But you guys were talking about trading earlier on. I went and picked up some backup keepers, and one of them's already came good. So I picked up Matthias Liss like last week because he signed. Again, I'll keep this brief.
Was it?
Yeah, he signed for Southampton from Turkey. He was a number one in Turkey. Went to go to Southampton to be on the bench, and then Southampton have loaned him to Troyes.
Oh,
And that
okay.
was the transfer window, right? But literally like 8 days ago, they did his press conference, and he's got the number one jersey, you know. And I messaged Genesis, and I was like, "This is weird. Can you like?" It's all in French. And I was like, "Can you listen to this and tell me why they're only doing a press conference now?" And he said there wasn't any real reason into it, but they did say like, "Oh, he's here to push the keeper, but he's not here to definitely take over." And I was like, "Oh, screw it. I'll trade him in, and hopefully it goes for it." He started at the weekend, and he saved a pen, brought in 83 points, but I didn't play the bugger. So I've got.
I had him towards the end of last season as well, and I put my brother onto him as well because he was trying to find a cheap goalie, and I think he was on his way down, wasn't he? Didn't his team get relegated? But he was one of the best goalkeepers in terms of saves per match in the division in Turkey. So there's high expectation of him to move to like Galatasaray at the end of the season. I remember that. But I kind of stopped following him. But that's amazing to hear that he's back in. I didn't know that.
That's just happened at the weekend. Champion Euros is maybe not quite as attractive as it would have been for Challenger or something, maybe. But for global specialists and all that, it kind of works for me. And the other keeper I got, I think we've spoken about this before, but I got a De Kaiser. And as you'll know, at the weekend, Utrecht get battered like 6-1 or something. So maybe finally hologram hands Barkas is going to get dropped. And
he's actually performed well until now, though. Barkas, has he not?
He has, definitely, man. But that's why like the Kaiser prices are falling. But again, he is on loan, you know, and it's like, how long did they play the loan keeper before they play the wee guy they want to sell for a bucket of money? You know, maybe that's the excuse they need, right? If you see the 6, big man, you've done well, but let's get the prized asset back on the pitch so we can punt him in the summer. That's what I'm hoping for. So that's kind of the big thing I'm hoping for this week is List stays in, maybe De Kaiser gets a sniff.
I like that. I like that play. I'm just going to have a little look now at the League One table because Troy. Where are Troy's in the table at the moment?
I think they're kind of lower mid. Don't think they're scoring a lot.
Be really interested to see what his score or his price does towards the end of the season if they look like they're in danger of going down, because there must that I feel like there's going to be a price spike on goalkeepers being relegated to League 2. I think they'll actually go up in value because then you'd expect them to go down, but they'll score better in a lower division maybe.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting to see that at the end of this season with the Champ Euro cards. But he'll definitely be one, I guess, that especially goalkeepers, I think if people see it as a cheap entry in a team that might do a lot better when they go down a division. So he could be really interesting. It could be a perfect trade, to be honest.
Fingers crossed.
We're keeping an eye on him. I might have to add him to my watch list. Good luck with that. But yeah, other than that, is there anything else that we need to cover? I think
I was good for 65% of the podcast, and you started speaking about NBA, and I've put about 250,000 bids in.
We could not talk basketball to a little bit, eh?
That's my afternoon sorted, lads.
Oh, yeah.
You two boys back on the podcast next week with your Boston Celtics jerseys on.
Brooklyn Nets, just to be a bit
American accents as well. People will start getting us confused with the Sorare Data podcast and the lads over there.
Oh, I just bought a Blake Griffin. I got him.
Oh, here we go. It started.
He's a Celtics guy, isn't he?
Aye, he just
Is he
left
good?
the Nets. Aye, he was a star back in the day, but
yeah, he's a bit older now, isn't he? But he wasn't he at the what's the LA team? Not Lakers, the other LA team.
Clippers. Yeah, he was massive at the Clippers. He was at the Nets, who were meant to be a super team last year, and then he kind of came back a bit, so he should be all right.
There you go.
He's got a super rare up for sale for 0.4.
Oh, this is going to turn into an NBA.
NBA Underdog. So I was looking. Oh, by the way. Oh, that's a unique. That's what it is. Because I was going to say, by the way, when I was looking at if you go on the main Sorare homepage, there's this little kind of video graphic, and it's all the cards kind of falling down. And I seen one of them, and I had to watch it twice, and it was like kind of purpley. But I'm just seeing now Blake Griffin. That's the unique kind of look. It's not really black; it's more purple.
I like it. I like the look of that.
We did see purple in that World Cup thing this week. See when it was like
that. I knew there was something else we forgot to talk about.
The World Cup thing.
That's definitely World Cup, innit? Come on. They kind of mentioned it in the announcement for basketball as well. And the way that they worded it on the basketball announcement was that we've got a huge announcement for football in the coming weeks about the world's biggest football tournament and some exciting news around that. And it's just like the World Cup's coming. We know they've got Argentina. They showed loads of different colours cards, didn't it? Oh man, excited for that.
So maybe
we'll end up with
World Cup uniques. Maybe the World Cup cards will look like these basketball ones. Maybe
be interesting. They should definitely do a different edition, a special World Cup edition. They don't need to.
It says year one edition underneath. It should say World Cup edition.
World Cup edition, yeah.
Because did you hear that? Like Nicholas Julia that was on Max HG, Sorare Data. He was on his live stream last Friday, and then I seen somebody translated a bit of it and put it out. But Nicholas Julia said to Max that he's had people for 5-6 months locked in a room working on the World Cup.
Oh wow!
I mean, that's been their job, is we don't want to see you until November kind of time. So. And that was on Friday, and then on Mondays when we got that little revealy thing. So I'm quite excited for what they're going to do on
games. Yeah, next few weeks we should expect a big announcement. Then really, so they tease it now. They're not going to wait. They're not going to leave us hanging for a month, are they? We should probably. They want us scouting for the World Cup now. So I'd imagine
Friday or Monday,
a month away. I reckon it could well be Monday. Yeah, we might see a launch on Monday. And then through the week, we might see daily launches of international teams. I wonder how many teams they got.
There's 12 colours in that thing, which maybe is 12, but one of them's purple. And there's nobody at the World Cup that has a purple flag or purple in their kit, really. That's that's obviously whoever. you know. So
True.
it's a wee
I
bit
mean,
hard.
Qatar's kind of like a maroony colour, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
Whereas it's like that unique, that Blake Griffin unique, that kind of purple. It was that kind of tone in it, you know. It was quite lilac-y, you know.
Hopefully they do some special edition like cards, like winnable cards. Like that's one thing I've missed. I loved, you know, like the game week 200 edition. I've got the Rodrigo. I won that, but now you can only win those cards, and I think that is something we've been missing on the platform for a bit, like a special like card win.
Limited kind of.
Yeah, like a limited. Give it a little special sticker on it or something that's like World Cup edition, and maybe you can only win those. That'd be amazing. I'd love that. But you know, they would have had to build that already. Hopefully that's the sort of thing that we get to hear this time next week. We can have a chat about it, but I feel like that's coming, and that's something exciting, especially on the football side of things.
Big time.
Nice.
Well, guys, good luck this game week. I hope we all finish top of the podium to join Tony up there. I know Stish, you've been up there recently, but I hope we all get up there this game week. We get a wee bit of luck going our way.
And we'll see you all next week. Cheers.